Marcus Chen pulled his rusted 1987 Honda Civic into the last available spot at Meadowbrook Elementary, the exhaust pipe coughing black smoke like a dying patient. The car's faded blue paint was more primer than color now, and duct tape held the passenger mirror in place. As he turned off the ignition, the engine made a sound like marbles in a blender before finally surrendering to silence. Through the cracked windshield, he could see other parents arriving in their pristine SUVs and luxury sedans, their vehicles gleaming under the afternoon sun like metallic jewels. He'd bought this car 3 months ago for $300 from a junkyard, the only amount he could scrape together after his ex-wife cleaned out their joint account and disappeared with her new boyfriend. It ran, barely, and that was all that mattered. His 7-year-old daughter Emma needed to get to school, and he needed to get to his 2 jobs that kept them fed and housed in their tiny studio apartment. Marcus grabbed Emma's forgotten lunchbox from the passenger seat, the one with princesses on it that she'd picked out at the thrift store, her eyes lighting up like she'd found treasure. As he stepped out, the driver's door groaned in protest, and he had to lift it slightly to close it properly, a maneuver he'd perfected over the past weeks. That's when he heard it, the sound that would change everything. Laughter. Not the warm, friendly kind, but the sharp, cutting laughter that slices through your dignity like a knife through butter. He turned to see a woman standing beside a midnight black Bentley Continental GT, her hand covering her mouth in mock surprise, her designer sunglasses perched perfectly on her head. Victoria Sterling, tech billionaire and the newest member of the school's parent community, having just enrolled her daughter in the prestigious private academy portion of the school. Her white pantsuit probably cost more than Marcus made in 3 months. "Oh my God," Victoria said, not bothering to lower her voice. "Is that thing even street legal? I've seen better cars in museum exhibits about poverty." Her friend, another well-dressed woman dripping in gold jewelry, giggled beside her. Marcus felt his face burn, but he kept his head up, clutching Emma's lunchbox like a shield. He'd faced worse than mean rich people. He'd faced eviction notices, empty refrigerators, and his daughter's tears when he couldn't afford the school field trip. This was just another obstacle, another moment to endure and move past. He started walking toward the school entrance, determined to deliver the lunchbox and leave with whatever dignity he had left. But Victoria wasn't finished. She stepped directly into his path, her heels clicking on the asphalt like a judge's gavel. "Excuse me," she said, her voice saccharine sweet but laced with venom. "I'm actually concerned for the children's safety. That vehicle is clearly not roadworthy. The smoke alone could be a hazard. Perhaps you should consider carpooling. I'm sure someone could give you charity rides." The words hung in the air like poison gas. Marcus looked her directly in the eyes, seeing his reflection in her designer sunglasses, a tired man in a wrinkled shirt with oil stains on his jeans. But he also saw something else, the same fierce determination that had gotten him through engineering school on full scholarship, through the Marines, through every hardship life had thrown at him. "My car runs fine," he said quietly, his voice steady despite the rage building in his chest. "It gets my daughter to school safely, and that's all that matters. Now if you'll excuse me." He stepped around her, but her next words stopped him cold. "Running fine? Darling, I've seen more life in a toaster. Tell you what, I'll make you an offer. $500 for that scrap metal. You can put it towards something that doesn't embarrass your child. I'll have my assistant tow it to a proper junkyard. Consider it my charitable contribution for the week." Her smile was a razor blade wrapped in silk. The crowd of parents had grown silent, watching the scene unfold like reality television. Marcus turned slowly, Emma's lunchbox still in his hand, and for a moment he considered just walking away. But then he thought about Emma, about every time someone had underestimated him, about every door that had been slammed in his face because he didn't look the part, didn't have the right clothes, the right car, the right connections. "Tell you what," Marcus said, his voice calm but carrying an edge of steel. "How about we make this interesting?" Victoria raised one perfectly sculpted eyebrow, intrigued despite herself. "I'm listening." Marcus set the lunchbox on the hood of his car, the metal warm from the dying engine. "You think my car is junk because of how it looks. But you're in tech, right? You should know better than anyone that appearances can be deceiving. What if I told you there's something under this hood that would make your Bentley look like the real piece of junk?" The crowd of parents pressed closer, sensing drama. Victoria laughed, but this time it was tinged with curiosity. "You're joking. What could possibly be under that hood except an engine that belongs in a museum of automotive failures?" Marcus pulled out his keys, walking slowly to the front of the car. "If I show you what's really in here, and you're impressed, genuinely impressed, you apologize to me in front of everyone here. You admit you judged me without knowing anything about me or my situation. Deal?" Victoria exchanged glances with her friend, then shrugged. "And when I'm not impressed, which I won't be, you take my $500 and admit this car is garbage. Deal?" Marcus nodded, then popped the hood. The metal creaked open, and several parents gasped, not because of what they expected to see, but because of what was actually there. Where a standard wheezing four-cylinder engine should have been, there sat something entirely different. A custom-built hybrid electric engine, sleek and sophisticated, with components that gleamed like surgical instruments. Lithium-ion battery packs were integrated seamlessly with a modified combustion system, carbon fiber housings, and a computer system that looked like it belonged in a NASA laboratory. Wiring harnesses were color-coded and perfectly organized, each connection protected by military-grade weatherproofing. The entire assembly was a masterpiece of engineering, a fusion of cutting-edge technology and mechanical artistry that transformed the junker into something extraordinary. Victoria's mouth literally fell open. She stepped closer, her hand reaching out but not quite touching, as if the engine were a museum piece behind invisible glass. "What is this?" she whispered. Her previous condescension completely evaporated. Marcus allowed himself a small smile. "This is a hybrid engine I designed and built myself. It produces 0 emissions in electric mode, gets about 200 miles per gallon equivalent, and has more torque than your Bentley. The body? Yeah, it's trash. But I bought it specifically because nobody looks twice at a car like this. I can park it anywhere, leave it unlocked, and nobody bothers it. Meanwhile, I'm running experimental technology that's about 3 years ahead of what's currently on the market." A well-dressed father in the crowd, who Marcus recognized as an automotive journalist, pushed forward. "Wait, is this Marcus Chen? The Marcus Chen who published those papers on integrated hybrid systems?" Marcus nodded modestly. Victoria looked between them, confused. "Someone want to explain?" The journalist was practically vibrating with excitement. Marcus Chen was a rising star at Tesla's advanced engineering division 3 years ago. He held patents on battery cooling systems and electric motor efficiency improvements that the company still uses. Then he just vanished from the industry. "Man, what happened to you?" Marcus's smile faded. He closed the hood gently, protectively. "Life happened. My wife got sick, cancer, and the medical bills bankrupted us even with insurance. I left Tesla to take care of her and our daughter. She died 2 years ago. My ex-wife, her sister, blamed me for not being able to save her, for not making enough money for experimental treatments. She took everything in the divorce, including my professional reputation. She told everyone in the industry I was unstable, unreliable. I got blacklisted, so now I work 2 jobs, night security and weekend construction, to support my daughter. But I still build engines because it's who I am. This car is my laboratory, my proof of concept, my way of staying sane." The parking lot had gone completely silent. Victoria's face had transformed from smug superiority to something that might have been shame, or perhaps recognition. She removed her sunglasses, and Marcus could see her eyes were actually glistening. She started, then stopped. She cleared her throat. "I need to apologize. Not just for today, but for being exactly the kind of person who judges books by their covers, when my entire fortune was built on seeing potential where others saw nothing. She turned to address the crowd. This man has more talent and intelligence in his little finger than I showed in my entire display today. I was cruel, dismissive, and everything I claimed to stand against. Marcus, I'm truly sorry. Marcus nodded, accepting the apology, but his guard was still up. He'd learned that rich people's apologies often came with strings attached. Victoria seemed to sense this. Look, I know you don't trust me, and you shouldn't. But I want to make this right. My company is developing a new sustainable transportation division. We need someone who thinks outside the box, who can build impossible things with limited resources. Would you consider consulting for us? Contract work, your own hours, work from home if you need to, $30,000 a month to start, and you keep all your patents. Marcus actually laughed, a sound mixed with disbelief and exhaustion. Why would you offer me that? You don't even know me. Victoria gestured to the car. That engine tells me everything I need to know. You're a genius operating in the shadows. I'm offering you a chance to step back into the light. On your terms. Marcus stood there in the parking lot, the afternoon sun beating down on his shoulders, his daughter's lunchbox still resting on the hood of his $300 masterpiece. Around him, the crowd of parents waited for his response, their faces showing everything from excitement to skepticism. He thought about Emma, about the times he'd had to tell her they couldn't afford pizza this week, about how she never complained, never asked for more than he could give. He thought about the nights he'd spent in this parking lot after dropping her off, too exhausted to drive to his security job, catching 20-minute naps before forcing himself back on the road. He thought about the engineering textbooks he still read by flashlight so he wouldn't wake Emma in their studio apartment, keeping his mind sharp, refusing to let his gift die just because life had knocked him down. But he also thought about trust, about how many times he'd been promised opportunities only to have them evaporate like morning dew. I need to think about it, Marcus finally said. Victoria nodded, seeming to expect this. She pulled out a business card from her Hermes purse and handed it to him. That's my direct line. Take all the time you need. But Marcus, I meant what I said. I'm not just trying to ease my conscience. That engine represents the future, and I want Sterling Technologies to be part of building it with you. Marcus took the card, feeling its expensive weight between his fingers. Before he could respond, a small voice called out from the school entrance. Daddy! Emma came running toward him, her backpack bouncing, her face lit up with pure joy. She crashed into his legs with the force of a small hurricane, and he scooped her up, the business card forgotten for a moment as he held his whole world in his arms. You brought my lunchbox. You're the best daddy ever. Victoria watched this interaction, and something shifted in her expression. That's my daughter over there, she said quietly, pointing to a girl with curly hair standing uncertainly by the school entrance. Sophia. She's been having a hard time making friends. The other kids think she's spoiled, and honestly, she probably is. I've given her everything except what she really needs. A parent who's actually present. I'm always working, always building the next thing. And I'm realizing I'm building an empire but losing my daughter. Marcus set Emma down gently. Emma, honey, can you go wait in the car for a minute? Daddy needs to talk to this lady. Emma nodded and skipped to the car, completely unaware of the tension. Once she was out of earshot, Marcus spoke. You want to know the real reason I'm hesitating? It's not about trust, or not entirely. It's that I've built a life where I'm present for my daughter. I make breakfast, I do her hair, I help with homework, I read bedtime stories. 2 jobs is brutal, but I do it because the hours give me that time with her. Money is important, but time? Time is everything. Victoria was quiet for a long moment, and when she spoke, her voice was different, more vulnerable than Marcus had heard before. What if the consulting work came with a condition? You work from home, you set your own hours, but once a week, you bring Emma to the office. We have a whole childcare facility that's underutilized because most of my employees are too afraid to use it, thinking it makes them look uncommitted. You use it, you show them it's okay to be a present parent. And maybe, just maybe, my Sophia can learn from Emma what it's like to have a parent who actually shows up. Consider it part of your job description, modeling work-life balance for a company that desperately needs it. Marcus studied her face, looking for the catch, the angle. But all he saw was a woman who'd built an empire and realized too late what she'd sacrificed to do it. You're serious about this? Dead serious. Look, I can't undo what I said earlier, and I can't erase being the kind of person who would mock someone's car in a parking lot. But I can try to be better. Let me make this right, not just for you, but for my daughter, for my company. We need people like you, people who've struggled and survived and still found a way to create something beautiful out of scraps. That's the kind of innovation that actually matters. Marcus looked at Emma, who was making faces at him through the car window, completely carefree and trusting. He thought about the engineering work he'd been doing in secret, the patents he'd been filing quietly, preparing for a day when maybe, just maybe, he'd get another shot. He thought about the conversation he'd had with Emma last week when she asked why they couldn't live in a bigger place like her friend's house. He'd told her that sometimes the best things come in small packages, but he'd seen the confusion in her eyes, the beginning of understanding that they were different, that they had less. 30,000 a month, flexible hours, I keep my patents, and Emma comes with me once a week, Marcus said slowly. But I have one more condition. You fund a scholarship at this school for kids whose parents can't afford the tuition. Full ride, including supplies and field trips. Call it the Second Chances Scholarship. Because everybody deserves a second chance, not just people like me. Victoria extended her hand. Deal. And Marcus? Thank you for teaching me something today. Never judge a book by its cover, or a genius by his car. They shook hands, and around them, the crowd of parents broke into spontaneous applause. Marcus felt something he hadn't felt in years. Hope, not the desperate, clinging hope of survival, but the solid foundational hope that maybe the worst was over, that maybe the climb back up had finally begun. 6 months later, Marcus stood in the Sterling Technologies Advanced Engineering Lab, wearing a clean button-down shirt, no oil stains in sight. His hybrid engine design sat on a display platform, surrounded by prototypes and computer simulations. Victoria had kept every promise, and his innovations were now being prepared for mass production. But the best part wasn't the money or the recognition. It was Emma, playing in the office courtyard with Sophia, both girls laughing as they built something together with Lego blocks. Two girls from different worlds, brought together by their parents' willingness to see past surfaces to what really mattered. The rusted Honda Civic still sat in Marcus's driveway at home, but now it sat next to a sensible Tesla that Victoria had insisted the company provide. He still drove the Civic sometimes, a reminder of where he'd been, what he'd survived. It was his laboratory, his proof of concept, his rolling middle finger to everyone who'd ever counted him out. And under the hood, that beautiful hybrid engine still purred like a dream. 0 emissions and infinite possibilities. Just like the life he was building for his daughter, one day at a time.